All right. We are live, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in. We have an awesome session today with an amazing guest. It's going to be really cool. My name is Kenny Harper, and joining with me today is Manny Torres.
Hey, how you doing?
And Gary Frey.
Hey.
So Gary Frey is going to Gary-fy this live podcast. And, Gary is actually the co-founder and co-host of the Anything But Typical podcast, which is pretty awesome in of itself. And he leads business development for CEOs who are looking to basically amplify their business. So he's on the Amplifier team in the sense that we're all looking to help each other become more successful and profitable. So Gary, welcome. Let's get a start off just by taking a moment to kind of introduce yourself, what got you to where you are now, and telling us a little bit about your background.
Well, it's an anything but typical journey. And it was one that I planned and God laughed, I think. And like you, Kenny, I started as a graphic designer much longer than you are old, probably. But nonetheless, what I did not realize that my first turnaround was at age 28. And actually, it was at 17. I just posted about that today. I was managing a swimming pool and getting it into profitability, but I didn't really think about it that much. But nonetheless, I found that I had a knack for being able to take kind of right brain problem solving and talk to CEOs that were very left brain and be able to help them grow their businesses as I was running an ad agency. And so fast forward, this really crazy journey has led me to run 4 companies and do 2 turnarounds and be in 2 Fortune 100s, which I don't fit anywhere. And right now I'm with a CPA firm that just works with privately held businesses and helps them grow. And I think out of the 77 of us, now we're at 11 of us that have actually started, run, or turned around businesses, which is really interesting. So I run business development for the firm. Mm-hmm. I also coach CEOs and management teams that are in high growth businesses that want that. And then we launched this podcast just to feature the stories of business owners who have, gone and taken a road less traveled and risked everything to try to do something and make an impact. So that's my story.
That's your story, and you're sticking to it. I love it because I see that that's a way to really get behind the scenes authentically and genuinely and help others who are on their journey maybe avoid some common pitfalls, or maybe see that there is a potential better path. Sometimes the things that we see are counterintuitive, right? It seems like, maybe this shortcut will be better, but it's like, well, to what expense?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's funny because I didn't think about it at the time either, but in 1991, I was brought in to do this turnaround, and it was he would consider himself a consultant and on business development, came from the Martin Agency in Richmond, Virginia, but he really also served as a coach in many ways, and he was not inexpensive, but it was $10,000 a day. Think about what that's worth in today's dollars, about probably $23,000 a day plus expenses, and you paid him up front. And so the pain was very high, which is why my partner initially brought him in. And then as we grew the company, we continued to invest in him because we got a good return on our investment. And so that really was pivotal in my career as well. So it helped me realize very early that having somebody outside, a friend of mine says it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. Oh, and that is a very true statement. And, if you find somebody that knows what they're talking about and you're willing to learn, it can be an extremely powerful investment.
You know, the other day I was hosting a mastermind of different business owners, and the suggestion was put into the conversation: you should find a mentor. Someone was basically looking for some insights, and the suggestion was to find a mentor. And they were like, yeah, well, the mentors I've been talking to are looking to charge me 20 or 30 grand. And that's a little bit out of my comfort zone at this moment.
Yeah.
And then the conversation was, maybe that's not a mentor. Maybe that's more of a consultant.
That's right.
And
I think you need both, quite frankly. And, you know, I don't know about your masterminds, but I'm not in any that are paid. I have been, and depending on who's running them and who's in them, it could be a worthwhile investment. But I do believe in finding the right tribe, you know, that is outside of your own jar, that you can relate to and that you can learn from, and that you can also speak into the lives of others from your perspective and from your experience. It's a great way to live, man.
It's, you know, the energy, because like we're on this roller coaster, right? And the roller coaster goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways. Sometimes it flips around and we're like, and when you're connected with other people that are on that journey, they can kind of relate to you. It seems refreshing because they can help you dust off, get up quicker, and really get on the right track. For some of the challenges that, you know, I've run into with people that are already doing good, but they still have room for improvement, is to understand they still have room for improvement.
Yeah.
What is some advice that you give people that maybe are on their journey, they're doing good now, and they think, I don't have time to work on my business. I don't have time to work with, you know, a coach like yourself, or they're just in that mindset. They're kind of blocking themselves, and they're thinking they don't need it.
Well, pain is an amazing motivator. and my experience is, if you don't have pain, you ain't going to be changing anything. So, you know, it's like, hey, if that's working for you, great. There will be a moment, especially as you grow a business, where too many roads lead to you and business is no longer fun. And when you start feeling lonely, like, you know, you're in this by yourself, it's no longer fun, you know, then find me or find somebody. But without pain, they ain't going to change.
Gary, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned investing that large amount of money, but you knew it was worth it, and having that mindset of being able to take that leap of faith and invest, but also how that is going to help you actually take action, because there's, as you mentioned, a little bit of pain there. And when you're investing that money, the chances are you're actually going to put some action into it. Do you see that with some of the clients that you work with?
Absolutely. What I had a mentor a long time ago in the mid 80s. So it was before I did that turnaround, and we did work with the largest general aviation aircraft builder. And I felt like, man, why are we charging these guys so much money? I mean, because we were charging a lot. And he said, unless the value and the price is high enough, they won't value it. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And what I knew when we hired this guy out of Richmond, one, he had helped the Martin Agency grow. He had a great reputation. The Martin Agency was one of the top in the country at the time. Our pain was so high because basically my partner was bankrupt. And so this was a Hail Mary. I don't care how much it costs. I'm going to throw this guy into the ring and see if he can help us. And what was interesting is we were one of 4 finalists for a big bank account. It was a regional bank. We came in second to the largest agency in Kansas, and I'm from Kansas originally. And so you could say, well, gosh, man, you guys lost. You know, if you're not first, you're last. And but the way I looked at it was, yeah, we got paid the same as last. but we beat out two much bigger firms. And I thought, wow. So we couldn't afford, we had to all take massive pay cuts to keep the doors open. Everybody quit except for me and my partner, who was 20 years older than me. And we had to build it back. And as we were growing it back and we got to profitability again, I knew that the pain was getting high enough again that we needed to bring in Stuart again. And as we continued to grow, there were inflection points where we said, you know what, it's time to bring in Stuart. And I got some pushback from my team because at that time, a new workstation on an Apple workstation or Macintosh at that time was about 12 grand. Well, bringing in Stuart was a little over 12 grand. Hey, we need another workstation. Yeah, I know. And I mean, those were hard calls, man, hard calls. But usually there was a 3 to 6 month lag. But what we spent with him, and he never gave us like insights that oftentimes we didn't know already. There was not like this, whoa, amazing revelation. But he gave us conviction and courage to storm the gate, which really shortened our cycle time, quite frankly. So, there's some investments that you make that don't pan out. I get it. So
I like that concept there, because that, just like we were chatting a moment ago, sometimes people think, I already know this. I already know what I need to do. It's like, great. Well, do you have the result?
Right.
If you know something, are you doing it? And more importantly, do you have the result? And if you don't, there's a gap.
Right.
And you need to figure out what's causing the gap. And then you mentioned something just now, sometimes even just having someone help shift how you're framing something, or the energy that you're bringing to a situation, that small subtle change there can have a huge impact on really how people show up and the results they get from it.
Yeah. I totally agree. One of the things that he did for us too was he got us to talk about money right up front. And that was courageous because we decided that our strategy was we were going to remove all hourly billing and move to project pricing and price ourselves towards the top of the market. And then when it came to billing time, we would surprise them with a little bit of a reduction, not a ton, because that becomes a budget buster, especially with big companies, especially if they're publicly traded. But if you come in just a little bit under, and you come in at the time that you said you would, or beat that as well, all of a sudden you're a stinking hero. And it was really amazing to me. So little things like that were certainly course corrections, or, hey, here's a little tidbit to think about. Again, you're paying enough money. It's like you're a fool if you're going to pay the money and not pay attention. So we were like, we may have been fools for spending so much money. There was times that people were questioning us, especially our staff initially. But if you're a bigger fool if you spend the money and you don't pay attention and you don't do it if they know what they're talking about. I
like to think of things like shifting the trajectory. Someone has a trajectory that they're on, and even if someone just helps just making a small bump, well, down the line, that's going to have a huge impact. And I think that's really important to think about. Does this help me get to where I want to go? Does it help? Is it going to have lasting value? Could this be transformative? And we did have a comment come in that I missed earlier. This is from Katie Groves. When you get out of your own box in your business and see from another view of your business, showing the big picture, she agrees with that. Which so agree. And it's important to have fun, but that's one of the things that we look to do is by connecting with others is get their insights. And I appreciate you sharing a few things thus far. What's just another maybe piece of advice that you might give someone who's on their journey now and they're looking to take that next step? and they are not sure which step that is. What's something that you would suggest for someone in that space?
First of all, I want to acknowledge one thing that Katie said, which was have fun. And I think business should be fun. Now, that doesn't mean, they don't call it vacation. They don't call it recess. It's called business. It's called work. But, and I've seen this many, many times with multiple CEOs, big company ones and smaller ones. But typically the smaller and mid-sized companies are the ones that really start feeling it, because the growth trajectory, they don't have the infrastructure, and they are growing. They hit levels of complexity. Way too many roads are leading to them, and they have to strip things off. And so I always look for pain. I look for two things. So I discovered my partner's financial improprieties 3 years after we did this turnaround. Caught him twice. And my name was on the door, so I had to make the choice. Either I destroy this guy, or I destroy my name because my name was on the door, or I start all over again, which is what I did. I decided to start all over again. And I created a stupid little T-chart called the Thrive Wither. And I put on there, I started with my Thrive. What makes me come alive? And I was at the ripe old age of 31 at this time. So I didn't have a ton of experience, but I had enough. And I included stuff like the environment that made me come alive, the kinds of projects I liked working, the kinds of things I love to do, including, since I had little kids at the time, where should we live? Because I knew I was going to have to leave Wichita, Kansas. So my wife had said, I'll go anywhere but Florida. And I don't know why, but it was too hot and humid, I guess. And my mentor was in Minneapolis and New York City. He split time between that. His name was Ron Anderson. He was kind of a godfather in the ad agency, but he was my mentor. And my wife she had an arthritic condition at the time. So living in Minneapolis was not an opportunity or an option. And New York was not where I wanted to raise little kids. So I put on there, I'd love to have a place that had hills and trees and closer to mountains and closer to the ocean, because I was landlocked in Kansas. I'd never been to Charlotte, North Carolina, but when I got invited to come to take an equity stake in another firm, I was like, wow, there are trees and hills, and I'm pretty close to the ocean, a lot closer than Kansas. And even that was there. But then the other thing is on the wither side, and this is where I really see people get hung up, and kind of on an annual basis, or even sometimes faster if they're growing fast. The wither side, you may be really good at doing pivot tables, but you hate it. And you're the one that gets it because you're the best in the firm or whatever. Mm-hmm. And what I see happening, and it's so simple, man. I mean, this is an actionable thing that somebody can do right now. Do a T-chart, write Thrive, split the paper, wither on the other side, and start with the Thrive, what makes you come alive, and write the stuff that's making you wither. And that's where pain is. And if you determine, oh my gosh, these are the things that are making me wither, then you have to start asking, how do I move some of those things off of my plate? Because guess what? Unless you're in a solopreneurship kind of role, there are going to be people in your team that if they knew that those things were, bogging you down, that oftentimes they would actually love to do those things, and they may actually be better at it than you. And so I do kind of on an annual basis, a little bit of what I call horse trading of responsibilities with the team, so that, the CFO is still the CFO, COO is still the COO, CEO is still the CEO. But in that team, and the way that they're uniquely made up, oftentimes they can switch things around. And I've seen guys go from hating their own companies, literally, to where they had, this one guy in particular that I coach had turned down 2 big offers, but he couldn't leave because he loved his people and he loved the culture, but it was just killing him. He hated his company. And we kind of went through some of that. We did kind of a function accountability chart, but that up against what they love doing individually. And we started taken stuff off of his plate, and he loved 3 things, and we got all of those other things eventually moved off. And it didn't happen overnight. Some of them did on an offsite that we talked about it. But that kind of stuff, that's exactly where I would start, man. I'd start with what's dragging you down. And that stupid little simple T chart is a 30-minute exercise. Get quiet, turn off your devices, and think, and write it down. Write it down.
No, I love that, because at the end of the day, if you're losing your energy, you're not going to show up to the fight the same. And that drip will weigh you down. And before you know it, you're just like falling over.
Exactly.
And, I've seen from a lot of people that I'm talking to, sometimes, again, they get in their own way because they think, I need to do everything.
Right.
I can't let this go. People can't do it as good as me. Oh, and then woe is me at the same time.
And oftentimes they can't do it as good as you. I mean,
That's a good point.
Especially if you started it. But that's where communication comes into play. What are the measures of success? Define it so that somebody has clarity of what looks like success, and have more conversation on the front end of that, so that you avoid the, hey, let's read my mind. Nope, wrong. Start again. I mean, I've seen that way too many times. It's just because of bad communication.
Gary, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about when you started going after new business, you started to elevate in terms of the types of accounts that you would go after, and that you would increase your fees. And a lot of times we see businesses that are scared to increase their prices, but a lot of times that allows you to get some of those things off your plate and really focus on those things that you love. So is that something that you've seen as well, that helped when you did that in your business, where as you increased those prices and the type of business that you were working with, that you were able to do more things and provide more value?
Yeah, that's a great question, Manny. The biggest thing is you got to know your numbers. And I'm not a quant jockey, but so I just keep things simple. You got to know, like, one of the biggest things in this first turnaround, we were charging by the hour, and it didn't matter how long. It'd be like if I painted my office and had somebody paint it with a toothbrush by the hour, it'd be a $15,000 paint job, but if I paid somebody, say, hey, this room's probably worth about $250, $300, to paint it, knock yourself out. Well, and then if they come in and they get it done in an hour and they say, hey, by the way, it's $295. Hey, fantastic. You're a hero. And they made, $295 an hour. Sounds great. That was the single most effective thing. So we looked at, hey, we're writing off all this money. I don't care if you spent $3,000 on a Yellow Page ad. It's worth $500. That's it. So we looked at it and said, where are we losing money? Where do we have good margins? And what's the market value? And then, what I found, and it's even gotten worse or better depending on how you look at it. If you just do what you said you're going to do and a little bit more, when you said you were going to do it, you honor your commitments, you're a freaking rock star out there. I mean, it's amazing. And we didn't, until we got profitable, we didn't go out and try to acquire new accounts. We just tried to serve the ones that we had. We tried to grow them. And we had to weed out some that were unprofitable. But how do you know unless you look at your numbers? You can't tell. So,
right. That's one of the things with growth amplifiers that we're always talking about. It's like you really got to be working with the right team or firm that can help you know your numbers and then strategically make a plan to continually amplify.
Absolutely.
It's one of the reasons we like partnering with business advisors who have the expertise and knowledge from the financial space, because our background and knowledge in Wheelhouse is from the marketing and sales point of view.
Right.
But we always take the holistic look to really know, does this even make sense? What is the best strategy to put into play? So those things are really cool. So for people who have tuned in, they've heard some of the things that you've shared, they want to learn a little bit more about you, your business, your podcast. Could you tell them some things and how they could find out more about you?
Yeah, the easiest place is go to LinkedIn, man. I'm Gary Frey, Frey, and I'm the only one that has these funky glasses. So and
I like
I'm in
them.
North Carolina. So I think that's the best way. And then if you want to do a Google, if you're, we're on all the major podcasting platforms. It's called Anything But Typical. And we're the only ones that have the registered trademark. There is a gal that has some spiky, funky hair, and that's not us. And I think she's in Australia or something like that. And we haven't done a cease and desist using that that name. But nonetheless, you'll find us. And again, what we do is we just like focusing on, and right now I'm focused on Charlotte, North Carolina entrepreneurs. When I left Charlotte in 2002 to go run a company in the great white north of Cleveland, Ohio, I left because I didn't feel like I didn't want to go to one of the banks again. I'd been at both, and I didn't want to do the large corporate thing. But the infrastructure of a smaller businesses was still kind of in its infancy. There were some, but not a ton. And so what's happened in the, when we moved back in 2015, the business community got a lot more robust, and I want to continue to focus on that. And so what we are doing is just telling kind of the unsung hero stories of other businesses, from really big ones. We had Ashley Home Stores CEO Charlie Maloof, and it's a $200 million company, which is a great company, very intentional, down to smaller, $3 million revenue kind of guys or gals that have some humility and are willing to tell the good, bad, and the ugly and the mistakes. So those are the two best places probably to find me.
Super cool. So definitely connect with Gary. We did have one other comment come in real quick from Mr. Steve Replin.
What's a pivot table? Well, it's in Excel, and I suck at it. But we have some people that are really good, Steve.
So it's definitely something to keep in mind. So definitely connect with Gary. Check out his podcast. It'd be worth it. He does put out great content as well. There's amazing things happening in the Charlotte area. Always impressed. Know some great guys up there in the Triangle.
So I'm glad you enjoy that.
Was that Manny?
I said North Carolina's my home state, so I'm really glad that you enjoy it. Yeah, grew up in Greensboro.
Oh man, I love this place. It's there's no place called heaven on earth, that's for sure. But man, I like this place. It's a great place to raise a family and grow a business, and it's a cool city. So thanks, Manny, for sharing your state with me. Hey, thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
and
Steve.
Kenny, thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. This has been fun.
It has been fun. Appreciate having you join, share some of your thoughts, your expertise. We look forward to connecting again for future Amplifier sessions. We do host a monthly mastermind for business advisors. You'd be welcome to come guest and check it out sometime if you have the time.
I would love that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks so much. And thanks for connecting with me on LinkedIn too. That's a great place to connect with really good people, I've found. So, and hear interesting stories and learn from others. So
likewise. So if you're tuning in now and you have questions for Gary, definitely connect with him. If you have questions for us, Growth Amplifiers, feel free to put them in the comments. Let us know as we're continuing to put out more programming for future events. We're also looking for guests. So Gary, if you know somebody you want to introduce,
I will send you some.
All right.
Send me a separate LinkedIn message so I don't forget about it, okay? And then I will send some folks your way.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And until next time, keep on amplifying.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day and a great week.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.